Okay, we're coming to the end of our lesson today, and I want to make a point about the psychology of tribes. And we do know that when you are in a group, you tend to make more extreme decisions than if you are on your own. If you've ever been to a sporting event and you've seen kind of the crowd react in mass, a kind of benign example of this is the wave. You would never just stand up in the middle of nowhere and raise your hands and then sit down. But as part of a 50,000 people doing it, it's kind of cool. And so you've got kind of that group behavior. And we see some of these things kind of play out very badly. So if you look at something like a hazing incident, most of the people involved in the hazing would not have done anything like that on their own. And that it wouldn't have occurred to them to do some of the things that happen in hazing, but as part of a group, it just makes a lot of sense. Psychologists have broken kids up into groups, and none of the kids knew each other before the experiment started, and they had them do various sporting events, kind of a survivor style for 10-year-old kids. And what they found was that the kids very, very quickly formed allegiances with the random kids that they were put on a team with, and against the random kids who were on another team, even when they knew it was random. They knew that it was totally arbitrary that they were on the blue team and the other team, and they could have just as easily been on the red team. Um, and so we see this kind of group mentality develop. Now, this isn't always a bad thing. If you think about when groups bring out the best in us, if you belong to like the psychology club on campus and somebody kind of motivates you to go out and tutor, um, um, adopt an elementary school and provide tutoring or do a beach cleanup day. I mean, these are things that maybe you wouldn't have done on your own, but as part of a group, you want to do your part. And that um, also applies to ethical standards. So you may be one of the things we know is that people who go to church behave differently than people who don't. And part of this is internal kind of, church is about values and teaching people values and holding people to account for the choices they make in life. And so you see kind of positive actions come out of group membership as well. So it's not always a negative thing. But when people start behaving in groups, they stop seeing the other. Why do people behave badly in groups? Well, one of it is peer pressure. You don't want to be seen as abnormal by the people you like. Another reason is anonymity. I mean, if you were to do something terrible on your own, all of the figures would be pointing at you. But if you do it something terrible as a group, then just one of many. In the past, though, people had more cross-cutting identities. It wasn't that you were a Republican and that said all we need to know. You might have been a Republican, a business owner, a Methodist, a little league coach, and you felt just as strongly or even more strongly about all of these identities as you did with your partisan identity. But today, political identity is a major tribal imperative that in order that when you say I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, that you are identifying to the world things that are much greater than who you're going to vote for in the next election. And so now it's not at all uncommon for people who are on dating apps to specify that they do not want to be contacted by people who are members of the other party. And what we start to see that people we know are largely like us, they're largely within our tribe. And so if we combine all of these factors, what we see is that there's a geographic explanation for polarization. It's not the only explanation, but it's a strong one. It correlates strongly with many of the facts. First of all, we have to understand that the geography of opportunity has shifted. You have very different opportunities if you're in a rural or urban area, and you have very different opportunities if the urban area you live in is a manufacturing city or if it's a ideas city. Um, this has resulted in being really strong economic sorting, that people are sorting themselves by people who make more money live together. People who make less money live together, and we do know that people with similar backgrounds tend to vote similarly. So in 1960s style, if you wanted to say who are your best votes, who are Democrats' best votes, they would have said things like Irish Catholics, Black, Union voters. Again, you have some cross-cutting there. I mean, there were a lot of Union members who were Irish Catholic. But we do know that we've always targeted groups of people. We also know that people intensify their behaviors when they become members of a group. And so what these kind of these three things, people with similar backgrounds tend to vote similarly. People are sorting themselves into economically distinct geographic areas, and that once people are part of a group, they act differently, they intensify their behavior, and they do things they might not otherwise have done. This can lead to a conclusion that the partisanship and polarization that we're experiencing today has a lot, or maybe primarily, to do with the fact that over the last 30 years, our country has sorted itself economically along geographic lines. And so that's a real explanation for what's happened. Now we are going to go into next week's class and talk about other kinds of approaches to polarization. But I wanted to throw this one out there, that polarization is largely a matter of geography. Geography is largely a matter of the economy. And there's a lot of data that supports this. So I will see you next week.